Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Mike, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Pumped to have you.
Hi, glad to be here.
It's gonna be a nice one. So let's jump straight into it. What got you into the fantastic and stressful world of entrepreneurship and consulting?
Oh boy, this is one of the questions that it always kind of, I don't know, it freaks me out because I've been doing this literally the entrepreneur side my whole life, and the consulting aspect of where I've come from really developed from the entrepreneurial side. I was born into a family that was very entrepreneurial. My dad owned his own business from the time I was born, and developed that over 40 plus years into a very sellable business. He was also in the grocery business, and so I learned the CPG and beverage space, and really that's where I came from, and where I had my first major exit in my late 20s. And so I started working in his primary business when I was in my single digits, and then getting into double digits when I was in my teens. I started working in the CPG space, and so I developed a company under my dad's leadership and guidance. With my brother, we built that up, and I sold it when I was 28 years old. So I had managed a lot of people, a lot of brands. I'd been working for a lot of major Fortune 50 to 1,000 companies during those teenage into my 20s years. And so I got to see a lot of different types of businesses and work with a lot of different types of leaders throughout that time. And when I finally sold my business, I thought I had made it. And I learned very quickly that, there was so much more left out there that I didn't know. And it, kind of pushed me into the world of, consulting for different companies, because people thought once that I had, sold my company and made a bunch of money, that I knew everything about everything. Like this guy knows how to scale, and he's done this in his 20s, and, he knows everything. Well, I figured out real quickly that I didn't know a lot. I just knew a lot about what I knew. I didn't know a lot about a lot of other stuff. And it was an interesting youth into adulthood, let me tell you. So
I'm not sure if there is a saying for that in English, but there is in French, which is like, the more you learn how much you still have to learn.
right.
Translated, absolutely horrible, because that's a lot of learn. But like, it's only once you start scratching the surface that you understand how much you don't know and how much there is that you don't know.
Yeah, it was interesting. After I sold my business, I took a little bit of time off, not much, but I went into the finance world. So I went from CPG and beverage and food space type of stuff, logistics, understanding how how products move through the ecosystem from manufacturing all the way to retail. I ended up going into finance, and I went into the stockbroker world first, the financial planning world second, and ultimately led to investment banking and M&A, which ended up ultimately getting me into private equity and now venture capital. So during those years when I was, first started out as a stockbroker and a financial planner, I started working with a lot of people, managing their money, understanding the psychology of how important investing is, and planning for the future and risk management, things like that. And then when I got to the banking world, that's where I really started, cutting my chops in the consulting and the coaching world that I live in, primarily with my VC ventures now. And I got to see every type of business, went through several exits during that time, both public and private. I got to spend my time working, doing some turnarounds during that time as well. And I was really industry agnostic. And so I got to see a lot of different types of organizations and get into the weeds of operations, management, leadership, products from the manufacturing side all the way to, getting them to market. So I had a really wide view and a wide education across many different sectors during that time. And that has gone on. I'm 57 now, and that has gone on my entire career now. I don't believe I haven't worked in just about every type of organization you can imagine, from startups to multi-billion-dollar organizations. I've across every spectrum. I've worked in every type of industry out there. Yeah.
So I like that. Tell us a bit more about what you're doing now. What's the core problem that you're solving, with what outcome?
Well, there's a couple things. So I'll start with my consulting and coaching business, because that's really what we're talking about. There's a lot of people out there that start businesses that have no idea what they're getting into. They don't know how to create infrastructure. They don't know how to find the right places to manufacture their products. They have no idea what the marketing looks like. They don't know how to build teams. They don't know what leadership opposed to management looks like. They struggle with, certain things, because there's nobody that's an expert at everything in every business. And most people don't understand that. They start their business out and they're like, oh man, I'm going to get a graphic artist, and I'm going to get a place to manufacture, and I'm going to hire a marketing team. And they just don't know how all those things fit together. And so a lot of things usually fall through the cracks. And most times it's because they don't know, number one, and number two, they're underfunded. So they don't plan for how much things are going to cost along the way. And so a lot of times I get the call for companies that are, they're suffering somewhere in either their process or their leadership. Now, I personally come from a place of leadership, even though I grew up in a world of management, and they are two totally different things. So a lot of times the problem I'm solving, and that I like to solve, is the people problem, which is you may not have the right person in the right position. You may have the right person in the right position, but they're not performing how they need to perform. You might be undercapitalized, or you might have been spending money somewhere that's not getting you a return because your process or your service or your product is misaligned with the market. So I solve a lot of different problems depending on what the business needs. I'm like a rogue business expert. I have the ability, because the amount of companies I've worked with over the years, to identify very quickly what is going on in an organization and be able to pinpoint that and understand whether it's a people, product, or service problem. And so I solve for all three of those, but I'm not super product heavy. I prefer to lean on the people side of it, because people are what make up businesses. Businesses are usually screwed up because of people, not because of the service or the product. And so if you start with the people first and you figure out what pieces of the puzzle need to fit in certain places,
Mm-hmm.
you can usually fix most of the product or service problems. It
Yeah.
almost always comes down to people. So a lot of the calls that I get and the problems that I solve are people related.
Mm-hmm. Who do you solve that for? Because we look at your curriculum, Mike, and we see, turnarounds from zero to $1 billion companies. There is all your personal history as well. Like you've done a lot. Today, who is it that you help achieving this? Like who's your ICP and who is it that you're trying to get into the room with?
So that's another great question because every organization is different. Listen, I've worked in most of the Fortune 50 to 1,000 companies, several of the Fortune 500s, at the top level, CEO, CFO, CEO levels, all the way down to VPs and director levels as well. I really like companies that are, above 5 million of revenue because they have a good ramp area to help them move up. Several of my clients started out in the 5 to 10 million dollar revenue areas, and over the years we've doubled, tripled, quadrupled them from both revenue and EBITDA standards. So I like the business owner a lot, but I have worked in many multi-billion-dollar companies with the C level and VP and director level. So again, it's wide across the spectrum. I say that I can help everybody, but that's not true. Not everybody can be helped. But for the most part, people are coachable and they are approachable, then it's usually easier to move the needle for them. So really anybody over 5 million of revenue, whether you own your own business or you're in a major corporation, I've worked in all of them. And if you or any of your listeners go to my website, they'll be able to see a spectrum of clients from just single business owners doing $5 to $10 million in revenue, all the way up to the Sony Entertainments, the Ingram Micros, the Activision Blizzards, and all the other companies that I've consulted and coached for over the years.
I like I like the note of that's a broad spectrum and not everybody can be helped. What's So we're going to get into marketing and sales, but what helps you identify who you're not going to be able to work with? The reason I'm asking this is I
I
think
love that question. I love
so
that
so
question.
so how do you do that?
I I try. I'm trying. I want to be very humble here because um, there's so many great consultants and coaches out there, and many that I've worked with over the years in unison. But I have this innate ability and trait to identify, usually in the first 3 or 4 minutes of a conversation, whether I can be of help to those people. And it's usually it's not me. It's them. And if you're not if you're not a good listener, you're not going to be a good client. Okay. And I just know that because I've worked with thousands of clients over the years. The ones that listen and ask really great questions early in the game are the ones that are open to change. And change only happens with pain. There, when things are going great, nobody does anything. Nobody changes. Nobody moves the needle all that much. It's kind of status quo. People only change when there is a pain point in their life. We see it all the time: divorce, death, job loss, economics. Like we only change when the Fed only moves interest rates when there's pain in one direction or the other, right? So we know, and I know from working with clients, if there's no real pain point, they're usually fishing. If they are not great listeners, I can tell why the organization is having issues immediately. If they're not open to alternative processes or even thought processes, I know they're not going to be a great client. If they don't show up to meetings in the first month or two that we've scheduled, where their schedule's like, oh man, I've got something I got to do. I'm sorry, I have to change. I know they're not going to be great clients. I have fired many clients over the years just because I know they're not going to be receptive, and the changes that we put in place are not going to last. But I can tell usually in the first 3 to 5 minutes of a meeting whether or not this person is or their organization is helpable. And if it's not, I have absolutely no problem walking away from it in 2 seconds. It's not about money for me, even though this is my profession and my job. It's about success, and it's about legacy, and it's about giving the type of services and the sage advice that accelerates somebody, not allows them to continue spinning in whatever pain they're in. So I like to look for the pain points, and I like to solve those pain point problems. And the right questions lead to the right answers. And I think I know most of the right questions to ask people in those situations to understand what their pain is. And if I feel that they're either not being honest, not being forthcoming, not being open, and they're guarded, and I don't feel like I can break through that relatively quickly, then I don't spend a lot of time chasing, chasing a paycheck for that type of business. I don't care what it is, and I don't care who the company is either. I have told many multi-billion-dollar organizations that there is nothing I can do to help them. So
that must be an interesting email or phone call even.
Well, they're mostly face-to-face or phone calls. I am very forthcoming. I named my company Alethia for a reason. Alethea in Greek means the truth. Mm-hmm. So part of my, my genetic makeup and my morality and ethics, I try to have a filter, but I really don't. My clients pay me to tell them the brutal, honest truth, and I do that as carefully as I can. But sometimes it just comes out exactly how it is and how it should be, which is your organization is sick. You're not willing to do what it takes to make it healthy, and there's nothing I can do, and nothing I can prescribe to you that you're going to do or take that's gonna solve that problem. It's like going to the doctor, and the doctor tells you you have cancer, and the only way you're going to get healthy and live is with chemotherapy, and you say, no, I don't want chemotherapy. And the doctor says, okay, well, I don't have anything else for you. And so you go home and you cry and you bitch and you piss and you moan and you blame the world and God and the food you ate and the vaccines you take, whatever it is. But you're not willing to do what it takes. The one thing that will cure you, you're not willing to do. So consulting and coaching are exactly the same way. You're a doctor that's providing a prescription. If people don't want to take the medicine, then there's no impact that you're going to have. So I like to leave an impact and a legacy on your business or on you personally that lasts a lifetime in a positive manner. Mm-hmm. And so not every client understands that. Not every client is open to that. And it usually is because they have not experienced enough pain yet. So sometimes you got to leave them to experience the pain longer. Right?
Amen. So I think that's such an important point here because, and I'm guilty of wanting people to move forward right away. Like
You said this was your problem. You said this was your goal. You've already experienced things that didn't work out. We've agreed that this will work. Why are you not moving forward with this yet? And I think what you just said here is it. And for people listening to us, B2B coaches and consultants, it's sometimes you have to let people sit in their pain a little bit longer, because the cost of changing, or the perceived cost of changing, and the perceived risk of changing is higher than the risk of doing nothing and settling with the status quo. And we need to be able to make peace with that, and maybe provide them value along the way. And it doesn't mean that this will never change. Like, there are some people who, I suspect, Mike, you in 2 to 3 minutes would be able to say, I'm not going to work with that person yet. But maybe in 1 year, when their situations won't have changed, at best, potentially have worsened a bit, they're going to be like, maybe I need to do something about this.
Yeah. One of the problems that I see in that scenario is that a lot of people, it takes them so long and too long to where the help comes too late, where they should have done it earlier in
But that is the risk.
the process and the cycle. And that's exactly right. That is the risk. And I try and tell people that. And I don't really tell them that. Listen, a lot of what I do is not telling. In the consulting world, we have a habit of telling people what to do and showing them what to do. And some of them do it, some of them don't. I really like to coach them and teach them into that. So I do a lot of questioning more than I do a lot of telling.
Mm-hmm.
And I try and get them to emotionally and psychologically get to a place where they feel they need to make the change, not me coming in as a consultant saying, hey man, you got a real problem right here. You need to do X, Y, and Z, and it'll cure that problem. While I know that, and I do that, I just do it in a way where I kind of come at it a little different. It's a little backwards. I use more of a coaching methodology than a consulting methodology. But what I call it, and what I created out of this over a decade ago, was consultative coaching, which is you ask the right questions, you lead them to the right answer, you don't let them spin for months and months and months, because let's be honest, the world now lives off of instant gratification. So if you let a client spin too long, if you don't get to the conclusion fast enough, if you don't give them the partial answer as well as make them work for a little bit, you're not going to be effective, and they're going to fire you eventually because you didn't help them get from A to Z quick enough. So the old coaching model doesn't work. I've seen it. I used to sit on the board for ICF, the International Coaching Federation.
Mm-hmm.
I've coached over 1,000 coaches in my life, and I've coached over 1,000 consultants in my life. And I have figured out that there is a blend between the two that really lends itself to faster conclusions and faster impact on an organization and a person if you ask the right questions, listen for what is going on, and help solve those problems without making the client spend too much time spinning on it themselves. And so that's something that I utilize in my consulting and coaching practice. In every client situation, I won't let them spin for days or months trying to figure out the equation to 2 + 2. It's pretty simple.
So
right?
how do you do that tactically, Mike?
Well,
Because that
again,
sounds great, but how do you do it in practice?
Yeah, so it's different with everyone, right? So some people, depending on their on how their brain works, they just need the bullet points. Some people require the encyclopedia. It's different with everybody, but I'll tell you a tool that I've been using for 25 years, and that is the DISC assessment.
Yeah.
And I can tell very quickly by looking at somebody's DISC exactly how they work in both their natural, lives and their adaptive lives, how they work under stress. It's very easy for me to do that. And I have administered over 15,000 DISC reports in my life. I even coached the president of Wiley Education Services, which is the largest provider of DISC in the world. I coached him personally for 2 years on their own products and services. I'm certified at a level on DISC that very few people are. So I use that tool quite a bit to understand where somebody is at in their head and how they act out on what's going on. So, going back to your question, how do I do that? I do that differently with everyone depending on how they interpret data, how they problem solve, how they implement things, and how they manage their time. There's really 4 areas. And so I try to deliver information in the language that the person understands and speaks, not in the way that I interpret information. So I'm a very bullet point kind of person. I don't need to read 400 pages of documents to understand something. You can literally give me 5 to 10 bullet points, and whatever I need to extrapolate out of that information, I'll figure it out. And if I need to go deeper, I will. But for the most part, I'm a bullet point person. But that doesn't mean I'm going to deliver the information to somebody who needs a lot more data to make a decision. So if I'm sitting in front of a person that requires high data to make a decision, then I'm not going to deliver them bullet points, because if I do, I'm only going to frustrate them. And vice versa. If I have somebody who just wants the bullet points and I'm trying to over explain something to them, I've lost them. So as a good consultant and a good coach, I have to be able to identify very quickly in the process with that person how they like to give and receive data, how good they are at time management, how good they are at implementing change or implementing service or implementing product.
Yeah.
How good they are at problem solving. Are they very creative, or are they somebody who needs other people to solve problems and they're much better at the action and doing part? And again, I can tell that very quickly in a conversation, because I've been doing this, for almost 30 years of my life. But I also use assessments. They speed up the process drastically, not only for me, but also for the client. We can really get into the meat of things very quickly. And I use those not only for the individual, but I use them for teams. I use them for departments. I've used them for entire organizations. It just depends on what the assignment looks like and what it calls for.
I like that a lot. How do you market this? Because
that's been my struggle lately, honestly. The world has changed, right?
Yeah.
For the first 25 years of my career, I never marketed anything. Everything was word of mouth.
No.
I spent many, many, many days speaking on stages around the world to big organizations, small organizations, keynote speaking, speaking on neuro leadership, on emotional intelligence. I have a plethora of subjects that I can speak on, and I never ever looked for a client in my entire career. Everybody came to me. Well, COVID changed that, and it put us all behind a screen for a long time. And when you're not in front of people all the time, I used to live on airplanes and in airport lounges, going from engagement to engagement, company to company. And oftentimes these were not just in the United States. I had clients, and I still have clients in Japan, the Middle East, Europe, Mexico, even South America. I've had clients globally most of my career. So it used to be that I would get on a plane and, meet people and spend time with HR directors and, chief people officers. But it was really my reputation that, and my effectiveness in the business that drew people to me. Well, like I said, COVID hit, we went behind the screen, speaking engagement stopped. The book that I had written, I never published it. And, my business didn't decrease, but it didn't increase either. Kind of stayed flat. I kept the clients I had, but, I wasn't really out there being able to promote myself on a stage or on a podcast or, or an interview or any of that stuff. And so my business changed. And then I went through a personal matter that lasted 3 years. And during that time, I wasn't able to really go out and promote my business. And it's now, in the last couple of months, all the things that were going on in my life during those 3 years are now over and gone. And I'm able to go out and start meeting and talking and doing the things that I was doing pre-COVID. And so I'm, how am I marketing? I'm still doing the word of mouth stuff, but I'm starting to ramp up the face-to-face engagements again. And I know a lot of people are not doing that. They're still sitting behind their screens, and they have no problem doing, cold outreaches and stuff like that. I really like to see people. I'm a people person. I like to be, I like the meetings. I like the lunches. I like the golf outings. I like the dinner events. I like the travel. I like meeting people. So last year I was on flights 150 times. The year before, 180. This year I've been on airplanes probably 100 times. I'll be flying again tomorrow and flying again Thursday, and we're right before Christmas. So I'm just getting out there. I'm getting out there and seeing people. And yes, I'm doing the a lot of the same things other consultants are doing. I'll be running paid ads coming up in the next 3 to 6 months. I've got my own YouTube channel that I'm creating content for. My office, which is it's blurred behind me, but this also is a studio for recording both audio and visual in it. I've got green screens and everything else. So, I'm coming of age at 57. I'm trying to compete with all these kids that are 19, 20, 21, saying they're making, 6 figures a month as coaches and consultants. And, they have no experience in that. It's all bullshit, but whatever. But yeah, it's a different world now. And again, going back to what I said earlier, a lot of this is instant gratification. We've created this with our phones. We've created this with our social medias, the perception of reality that really isn't reality, all of those things. So if you're going to compete in that world, you got to jump in head first. You can't dip a toe in. So I'm not dipping any toes, man. I'm going out there and competing every day. The only difference is I've got 25 to 30 years of this. Most of these other guys have 1 or 2 or 3 years at it. They really can't consult or coach on a level that people like me who've been doing this more than half their lives can. It's just a fact. They haven't seen enough. They haven't seen enough pain, and they haven't seen enough companies, and they haven't worked with enough of a diversified group of people, racially, education-wise, culturally, all of that stuff. They just haven't. And guys like me, we have, and maybe that makes me a dinosaur, or maybe it makes me a commodity. I don't know. But I do know that, people in my caliber of coaching and consulting, we're a rarity right now, and we're expensive. And that scares a lot of people. So.
And it should.
Yeah.
Mike Warren, Ladies and gentlemen, Mike, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
They can go to two places. They can go to asbizsolutions.com, asbizsolutions.com, or they can go to Alethia, Alethia, V as in Victor, P as in Paul.com. And they can find me there because I also run a venture capital firm and we invest in companies across the board. One of our funds is beverage. The other one is agnostic. So you can find me in two different places. But listen, my cell phone number is listed all over the internet. And
there we go.
And I have no problem with people calling me and finding me and using my cell phone number. I hide from no one. So just go on, do a Google search, Mike Warren, Alethia, and everything you want will pop up on the internet, including my phone number. My cell phone number, not a business number, my cell phone number. So,
Mike, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders. And we'll put all the links in the description, of course.
Awesome.
So you can find Mike.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. All right.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.